This video deals with layers in Paint.net. In order to complete this task correctly, you need to have Paint.net open with the Tools palette on the left and the Layers palette also visible on your screen. I keep it on the bottom right, but that's only the way that I like to work. You may wish to have it elsewhere. To start this task today, you will need a landscape picture. You can find that from Google and do an image search. Type it in and select images. I suggest that you use a large size because your landscape will need to be a full screen image in order for it to work correctly with what we're doing. Now when you're choosing your landscape, you need to try to choose something that's not very busy, so there's not a lot of things going on in the picture. For example, this picture here with the flowers has a lot of things going on, so it's going to be difficult for us to work with later because we'll be adding to it. This image here doesn't have a lot happening, so we're going to use that. You will need to choose a landscape of your own. Make sure that when you're finding the image that you click on full size image to make sure that you get the full size rather than a smaller version. When your full image has loaded, right click, save picture as, and put it into your H drive in your ICT folder. If you have a Paint.net folder, that's a good place for it. Now, we need to go back into our Google image search, just using the back menu. But this time we need to search for some things that we would like to add to that picture. So maybe a boat, in this case. But this time we can use smaller pictures because they're fitting inside of the landscape that we've already got. So this one will be fine. We save picture as, and again it goes into our H drive. To complete this task, you will need a landscape and 5 other pictures that you want to add to your landscape. Now we go back into Paint and we open the landscape that we saved. Now this one looks as if it's actually been modified already rather than being a real landscape, so you need to try and find something that looks quite real. We're also going to open up the other files that we've just saved that we want to add. So in total you should have 6 pictures open, your landscape, and then all of the other things that you're going to add. For now I've just got the one to use for a demonstration. The first thing we need to have a look at is the layers window down the bottom. At the moment we only have background showing, and that will be the same for each picture that you open up. This is the background layer of what we're going to be dealing with. When we're talking about layers, we can compare it to something like the teal burger, where each part of the burger, the bun, the meat, the tomato and the lettuce, can be dealt with separately. We can take it out, or we can put it back in again, or we could put an extra item in. We compare that to something like a smoothie, where everything is all mushed up together. If you want to add anything in, you have to mush it all in. If you want to take anything out, it doesn't really work because it's all mashed together. Using layers in our image editing program means that we can actually keep all the parts of it separate and work on them individually. Now once we've got our files open, we need to make sure that we save as our landscape. So we go into our landscape picture, go to File, Save As, and then in our H drive Paint.net folder, we select Save As Type, Paint.net. You must save as Paint.net, otherwise the layers will disappear. And we give it the correct file name based on your homeroom. So this example will be 7J ICT. The task is Landscape 1. Make sure you don't put a space in there after landscape. And then your first name and your last name, as we always do. Make sure you have the correct homeroom in there. That will save to make sure that we've got a working copy saved on our H drive. that will keep working and that we can keep saving to. We don't need to save as again, just save using the save button in the top left corner or Control S. Now, the next step is to go into one of the pictures that we want to add. Now, the easiest way to do this is to use your pen. And we're going to select the Lasso Select tool. We want that one because it will let us draw around the outside of our objects. And we can now use the pen, or you can use your mouse if you want, to trace the outline of your object all the way around. You need to be as accurate as possible. You may need to zoom in to select different parts of it. You can erase edges later if you need to, but for now you need to be as accurate as possible. Mine's a little bit rough just while I'm doing this demonstration. Then we use the copy button on the toolbar to copy the area that we've selected, go back into our landscape, and we can paste it on. And now we have a boat in our picture. We can put it down on the water, and using the little flashing cursors around the outside of the boat, we can resize it to make it the size that we want. We can stretch it or squish it if that's what you want to do, or you can keep it the original shape. Now, we've done that, but if I decide that actually no, I want to move that boat, so I reselect it again, and again this is going to be a little bit rough, but it's just to serve a purpose to demonstrate this idea. We select the outline of the boat and then the Move Pixels tool. If I move the boat, you'll now see that the background has actually disappeared as well. And the reason for that is that I pasted the boat onto the same layer as the background. That's like our smoothie idea. Everything's getting all mushed into one. Now if I undo a couple of steps so that the boat disappears, and this time I go to Edit, Paste into New Layer, you'll see that in the Layers box down at the bottom, there's a new level added. Now that means that our boat is now actually basically a separate image that we can deal with completely differently to the background. Once it's there, we deselect everything. This time, if I select around it and move it, the boat moves, the background stays exactly as it is. One thing you have to be careful of though is to make sure that you are on the correct layer. So if I want to move the boat, I need to make sure that I'm on layer 2 where my boat is. If I accidentally click on the background layer and then move that same selection, the background moves instead of the boat. So whatever you select in the layers window, that is what you're actually going to be editing or moving. Now each item that you add to your image needs to have its own layer. You need to make sure that you're actually pasting into new layer using the edit menu, paste into new layer. So in total you should have a minimum of 6 layers by the time you finish this task. The background, then layer 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Your background and 5 items that you've added to it. You need to think about things like making sure that each item that you add is the correct size based on where it is in the distance and how it is related to other objects that are there. You also need to keep in mind how accurate your work is. Now there are some bits that we can see in the background of my boat that were in the background of the original picture that we don't want. So if I deselect the background so that I can clearly see my boat, and then I zoom in, making sure that I'm on the correct boat layer, now I can go to the eraser tool, maybe zoom in a bit more, and I can actually clean up around the edge of the boat to get rid of the bits and pieces that I didn't really want, so that when I view the whole image again, I will see the proper background and only the parts of the picture that I pasted that I actually want. And it will look much better and be a much more realistic image, which is what we're after. We're changing reality. And so now the boat looks a lot better because it doesn't have as much of that background around it and around the water. If you want to add layers that are in front or behind each other, you can do that quite easily. If I paste another copy of that boat into a new layer, and make sure I'm zoomed out so that I can see it all. If I want to have, for example, a new boat behind the one that I'd already put in, make the boat the right size, and put it where I want it, we can then use the arrows at the bottom of the layers box to move those layers up and down. So now, once I deselect it and we can see it a bit more clearly, we can see that the new boat is behind. If we want to swap them again, we move the layers. And now the new boat looks as if it's jumped on top of the other boat because it's in the wrong place. Move it back up again, and we can see one boat clearly in front of the other. You need to make sure that you save your work and make sure that all of your outlines are neat and that you have the correct number of items on your screen and that they are the correct size.